We're used to thinking of plants as part of the interior. You buy one, place it somewhere, water it now and then, and that's it. But if you let your gaze linger just a little longer, you begin to notice. With this green being, something more is happening than simple growth. There are days when it seems to reach out towards you, to absorb the silence of the room, to gather into itself the tension you hadn't even realized was there. And suddenly it feels easier to breathe. Your thoughts fall into order, and a sense of wholeness arrives. Not every plant works this way, and this isn't about botany or breeding qualities. It's about something else, a subtle, almost imperceptible connection between a human being and whatever is growing nearby. Today, I want to tell you about one particular plant, without legends or magic, simply about the way it influences your state, how it resonates with our thoughts, and why it can become a source of inner support. In the second half of the last century, an American polygraph specialist, Cleve Baxter, carried out an experiment that changed his understanding of plants. He connected an ordinary houseplant to a lie detector, wanting to measure how quickly water would travel up into the leaves. At one point, he simply imagined bringing a lit match close to a leaf. He did nothing. He just thought it. And instantly the needle jumped, registering the same kind of response seen in a human being experiencing fear or stress. Startled by the result, Baxter began conducting further experiments. He tested how plants reacted to events happening in another room, how they responded to the return of their owner, whether they sensed the pain of other plants when nearby leaves were torn or burned. Every time he observed the same thing. The plant seemed to respond not to the action itself, but to the intention. It perceived human emotions, even at a distance. Later, Baxter wondered if these processes could be captured visually. He turned to Kirlian photography, a technique that reveals the glow surrounding a living organism. Once again, he found confirmation. The field of the plant changed depending on contact. When a calm, kind person was near, the glow became smooth and gentle. When the person was irritated or stressed, the field dimmed, as though the plant's life force itself had weakened. These observations explain a lot. Why some plants thrive in our homes while others do not. Why in one household greenery flourishes with little effort, and in another it withers despite careful care. Plants are finely attuned to what happens within the human field. They respond to thoughts, intentions, inner fluctuations. They do not judge, argue, or analyze. They resonate, amplify, receive, and balance. And in that, they can be truly invaluable.
There is one plant most often bought for its beauty. Some call it a symbol of comfort. Others know it by the name women's happiness. But behind this simple association, few notice how deeply it truly works. This plant is the peace lily. At first glance, it seems ordinary, a modest cluster of glossy dark green leaves with pale sails in place of flowers. It asks for little, growing quietly and unobtrusively, as if it does not wish to disturb. Yet precisely in that lies its strength. The peace lily acts as a natural filter, not only physically cleansing the air, but also on a more subtle energetic level. It is especially helpful in spaces where fatigue, unspoken words, and inner tension tend to accumulate. The peace lily has a strong watery nature. It loves moisture, is sensitive to dry air, and reacts quickly to sudden changes. This is not merely a botanical trait. It breathes together with the home. If the household is filled with conflict or anxious events, the peace lily begins to wilt even with proper care. But when peace returns and a sense of support is felt again, it revives, sending out new leaves and blossoms. This is not magic. It is simply that the plant feels deeply what is happening around it. It is like an indicator, showing whether a space is filled with calm or with overload. By its nature, the peace lily is connected to the element of water, and water does not fight, It absorbs, it envelops, it dissolves. This is how the plant interacts with people, not through loud effects, but through quiet presence. It draws off excess tension, disperses inner restlessness, and helps to restore balance. When a living plant enters the home, especially one like the peace lily, the atmosphere begins to change. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly the space becomes quieter, calmer, lighter, as though someone unseen has lifted a weight from your shoulders. In that silence, it becomes easier to hear your own thoughts, to discern what is essential and to let go of what is not. It is in this state that the teachings of Joseph Murphy work best. He was a practitioner, exploring how the subconscious shapes human life. His central idea was simple. Whatever we continually hold in our minds will begin to manifest in reality. This applies not only to desires, but also to beliefs, worries, repeated thoughts, and even the casual phrases we repeat to ourselves day after day. Murphy urged us to treat thought as a seed. It must be planted, that is, formulated, spoken, acknowledged. Then it must be watered, returned to each day, but not disturbed with constant checking. Growth will happen when the soil is sufficiently nourished by attention and when the person is ready to accept what they themselves have sown.
A plant in this process can become a true friend and helper. It grows slowly, yet surely. Roots take shape in silence, growth begins unnoticed. Caring for a plant can be linked to the work of caring for your inner state. This is not magic, but a way to unite action and thought. You water the flower, watch over its leaves, and each time you repeat to yourself the thought you wish to take root in your life. The phrase should be simple and truly yours. For example, I choose peace and happiness. I am a beloved child of the universe. I value every moment of my life. The key is not to repeat the words mechanically, but to give them the same attention with which you tend to the plant. Then every gesture becomes more than care. It becomes an inner setting. Over time, these small actions begin to work together. The plant grows, the thought strengthens, the inner state becomes more harmonious. This is why the saying, "Place this plant in your home and you will forget about illness," sounds symbolic. It is not about miracles or instant cures. More often, people suffer not from illness itself, but from the constant inner tension they live with. It builds up through rushing, through worries, through restless thoughts. Even at home, it's not always easy to truly exhale. And when there is no peace inside, the body cannot restore itself and wears down. In this sense, the plant is not a medicine, but a real companion. It purifies the space, fills both the home and the person with energy. With it, breathing becomes easier, thinking becomes clearer, being becomes lighter. Gradually, the heaviness lifts, sleep becomes deeper, and along with it comes the feeling that the body is finally rejoining life. When a plant enters the home, it becomes not just part of the decor, but part of your healing, a quiet, living support.